Welcome, and my name is Jamie Harris. We're going to be looking at Openreferral and Silobuster's data manipulation library today. This is part one of a series of videos outlining the overall concept of the library. And today we're going to be looking at specifically connectors, handlers, and loggers, and the mutate method of the connector. So there's going to be a lot of changes upcoming with this library. The overall concept is going to remain the same though. The documentation can be found at openreferral.github.io/silobuster-model-trainer. And I'm going to put this in the comments. Okay. The first thing that I want to look at is a connector. So if we go to the base connector module, we're going to have at a minimum input handler, an output handler, and a log handler. The input handler will handle reading the data from our data source. The output handler will handle writing the data from our data source. And the log handler will handle logging those data changes. And the data is going to be changed using the mutate method here. The mutate method will accept any number of functions. It will execute those functions on the data frame of the connector. And we can access that property using df. It will perform its mutations on the data. The log handler will be called using the log method to log those changes. And then finally, the write method will write those changes using the output handler. We're going to be using a Postgres connector, and specifically we're going to be using a Postgres to JSON connector today. And the Postgres to JSON connector will be taking a Postgres handler as its input handler, a JSON handler as its output handler, and a logger. Now let's look at our handler real quick. And our Postgres handler will inherit from the base DB handler, which inherits from the base handler class. And a base DB handler will at minimum have your connection variables. And we're going to be using a Postgres handler today. And you can get the documentation here. In our connector, let's hop over here real quick and let's just look at an example real quick. Okay, so we are going to exact match latitude and longitude. And whenever we exact match latitude and longitude, you'll notice down here in my input handler, which is a Postgres handler, I am not passing any connection variables. That's because it's going to get its connection variables from environment prefix. And environment prefix is then going to load environment settings with the prefix Postgres underscore. Now let's look at the code on that real quick so that kind of gives you a little bit better understanding. In our Postgres handler, you'll see here in my constructor a number of arguments that define our connection. However, if those arguments are not passed, then it is going to load those arguments from the environment using this prefix Postgres and then underscore DB for database underscore username for username, so forth and so forth. So let's go ahead and run an example of this being used so that we can see what's going on. We're instantiating our logger here, our input query, our input handler here, and we're passing only the query as well as the environment prefix, and then we're creating a JSON handler. Finally, we're going to create a connector instance, and we're going to pass that connector instance our input handler, output handler, and log handler. I'm going to print out the connector's data frame. I'm going to import our worker function from the workers directory, and then algo exact Latin long, and I'm going to import the exact Latin long function. Finally, we're going to call the mutate method of that connector, passing it that function exact Latin long, and we're going to save the results, or save the return. The return from the mutate function or method, by the way, is going to be a GUID for the job. The reason why that's going to be important is, and we'll look at it in another video, you can pass any number of functions, and all those functions that are passed to that mutate method will have the same job ID, but they'll have a different step name, and the step name will be the function's name. So then we can query the database for the step name and the job ID and return that unique log. And we can also query the database for just the job ID, and we're going to see all this. We're going to get returned all the steps that was executed on that particular job. Let's go ahead and run this code. Perfect. So we can see our data frame here being printed out, and then we can see that we have our job ID down here. In our next video, we're going to look at the log of this job that was just ran, and this step here, exact Latin long. And we'll see you in our next video.